Okay, rulers, settle down. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get pre-orders of all the upcoming Force of Will sets, as well as releases of previous sets after they come out. ccgprime.com with over 100,000 Force of Will singles, as well as out-of-print boxes from the past, and TCG accessories, as well as fowlibrary.com, a wonderful resource for deck lists, article discussions, and more. Check them out at fowlibrary.com, as well as these amazing patrons. Special thanks to guest lecturer member Vite Ramen. Thank you for your support. Class is in session. Hello there, rulers. Welcome back after a long week of Force of Will, a release week of Force of Will, to your favorite ever live Force of Will podcast. It's Office Hours here with myself, DM073, and I'm joined, as always, by Mike Rance. Excellent. And Paul Reisman. That was good. I should have done you in reverse, because then Paul could have breathed in and Mike could have breathed out. It would have been a lot better. Anyway,
almost like a Tim the Tool Man kind of.
Yeah. Welcome back to Tool Time.
Feature myself, Jeremy 7.
Yeah.
Joined as always.
Roll the intro. Let's go.
Roll the intro again. Roll it back. And we're in the game. I do want to say thank you all so much for being here at the end of our year. Episode 53. We've officially passed the 1 year mark of doing this show. This has been a very fun show, much more laid back than some of our other Fowcasts have been, but still just as fun in a very different way. So thank you so much for that. And as well, if you like what we're doing and you want to consider supporting us, click that subscribe button and the like button down below to feed the almighty YouTube algorithm, and consider clicking that join button to join us as a member on the channel to get access to all kinds of cool perks and help push us into the new year, especially as we start planning for the potential for GPs in terms of how to get there to stream. The channel members help out significantly with that, and we're appreciative of it. So it's kind of an open forum-ish today, truly an open office hours. We've got a few minor topics. Nothing really big has come out of the past week other than our first kind of hands-on takes at Constructed with the new set, which we can kind of talk about, which we're going to kind of talk about as well. Just our first passes, first drafts we've been feeling of some certain decks. We're going to talk about the Wanderer ban list update, as well as kind of looking back over 2021 and looking ahead into 2022. So, Mike, I am going to jump to you first with Wanderer ban list, mainly because in the grand scheme of this pass, I would like to say that you and I together, as a team, changed the ban list for the better through our actions with Hungrybox.
Yes, sir.
If you haven't already seen it, the ban list has officially been updated. It is effective as of right now. Carlina has been banned in Wanderer, rest in peace. And Horn of the Sacred Beast has been unbanned, which felt very out of out of left field, but I'm okay with it. Just gonna go back to playing casually Ascended Priscia full speed, just play Horn. Let's go 4 horns. Let's do it.
4 horns, baby. Let's go.
I do want to take, Mike, you're kind of our Wanderer go-to guy. And so I wanted to talk about your thoughts on what this ban list change means for Wanderer and kind of where your focus is. As you said in a message to me, Wanderer is fixed when I say it's fixed. So I'm wondering what your next point of focus is as we look at Wanderer.
So the first thing that I've been focusing on has been, obviously, with the banning of Carlina, we're going to see the Fallen Angel rulers decks, the Fallen Angel tag rulers, take a bit of a hit. Carlina was just kind of the go-to pair up with everything else. But obviously, I don't think it's the end-all be-all. Dante Virgil is still a ton of damage on the early game.
Yep. There's
just so much you can do with them. They just naturally flow into the 6 Sage of Stone, because Stone is still broken, and I don't know why it wasn't banned. But I'll take care of that.
We had to hit Carlina or 6 Sage, and we got Carlina hit first. So I guess
probably should have been both, but that's fine.
Yeah, fair.
Anyway, so some of the first things that I'm thinking is just obviously we see a little bit of the guide into running less tag rulers now that we have the 2 best tag rulers in the game are gone.
Yeah.
Feith and Carlina being out is just kind of crazy. Like, obviously, you can still play tag decks, and the tag decks will still do well, but they're not the be all end all anymore.
Yeah,
it's not
for
just
sure.
like Carlina or bust, or you're just getting left out of the tournament.
Charlie's like set the arbiter turbo. Let's go.
Listen, man. If the Electro combo wasn't already as good as it was, I would say that he's right.
Yeah, that was my one thing that I wish had been banned was Electo.
That's
I
on
certainly
my list of things, but I also do think that there are certain things that I love about this format, especially with the fact that one of the big things that I'm going to be talking about is the fact that with Horn unbanned, obviously it's not the be-all end-all that it used to be, but Tree 2 actually is back on the menu.
Sure.
In my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I think, yeah.
I would say I'm just going to kind of
go for
into
it.
a mini, like,
rant.
The floor is mine.
The floor is yours.
It's not even a rant, actually.
It's rant.
Rants. Anyway, but I think the biggest thing that Tree tends to do, not only do you have the horns to kind of go longer into the game, obviously there's a lot of ways to make your opponent lose life now, but at the same time, even with that amount of ways to do that, Tree can still play a very solid early control game. There aren't a lot of ways to really, like, effectively combo your opponent down with life loss as there were back when Alter was around. Obviously, you have certain combos that can do it, but it's not quite as potent, I would say.
Sure.
Big thing. Oh no, Toby and Charlie. Anyway, I'd say the biggest things about Tree is that you have multi-dimensional ways to continue going further and further along into the game.
Yeah.
Horn of the Sacred Beast means that you have ways to do it with the graveyard. Allosaurus, just putting himself back on the top of the deck, is already a good effect that stops the deck out at certain points. And obviously having the two together is actually going to be what I consider one of the strongest intersections.
That's true. I forgot about Allosaurus being able to just, like, reveal himself for 0 and put it back on top. That's a little bit much. I didn't really think about that card too much.
Yeah, that's been one of the biggest things about me. That's actually the reason that we had banned Tree 2 in Conqueror back in the day.
Sure.
Obviously, we brought Horn back, but there was stuff like Reincarnation of the Soul, Allosaurus. There are ways for Tree to just go infinite, and if you're not playing a deck that has the specific answer to beat it, you're not winning the game. And I think that Tree, with the combination of Allosaurus and Horn, gatekeeps a lot of potential decks in this format.
Yeah, that's true. I was thinking just Horn when I was looking at it.
No, definitely not just Horn.
Because we have a lot more. I will say we have a lot more instant speed life loss tools that are, like, splashable, that, like, you can just comfortably run and feel good about it.
It's just not enough, in my opinion.
Right. But you also, like, if just thinking about Horn, right? Like, we have enough instant speed life loss stuff that's, like, generic enough to be played in a deck anyway that you don't, like, feel too bad about it. I would say that also with just Horn, we have come a long way in terms of, like, repeatable cheap pings, which is Tree's nightmare. Like, it's Dark Tree's nightmare. When they only have, like, 1 or 2 resources, is you can just kind of, like, outplay it a little bit. The Allosaurus does actually give me quite a bit of pause as I think about it now, because, like, there should always be a priority sequence where Allosaurus can get put back on top of the deck because of his own pay 0 effect.
Yep, the only way you can actually get around that is with instant speed damage, because as long as you put that somewhere on the chase, the Allosaurus goes to the top, the damage will knock it out into the removed area, and then they'll go to draw.
Oh, that's true. Because yes, you can still kind of get there. It's just tricky. It's just tricky
tough.
when you have to deal with both at the same time. I can see that being
something else that I do want to highlight very much so for the fact that Horn is back is that back when obviously Tree and Horn have never been legal in the same Wanderer format.
Yeah,
Horn was banned right before the release of ENW. It was just a precaution that the team took back when. I don't know, back when somebody made a ban list and cared. But
for Wanderer, yeah.
Yeah. But I think it was also banned in New Frontiers because Horn and Tree were still illegal at that point.
I think we got Horn banned because of let's see. Why did we get
I'm pretty sure it got banned.
Yeah, we can go back.
Horn also got banned because of the Cheshire Cat's assistant.
Yeah, the Cheshire Cat's assistant combo. That's why it got.
We don't talk about that. That was a dark time. Anyway,
I remember recording footage of the Cheshire Cat's assistant combo and sending it direct to the company to say, like, you can't allow this to exist. Please watch me do this in 9 out of 10 games uninterrupted. Yeah, just like you can't allow this to exist, and they did. They fixed it. So
yeah. Back to the points on Tree. On Horn coming back. Something we didn't have back then was improved healing robot, which literally just resets your goddamn deck.
Yeah, it's true. It does. It completely resets it.
So there's a few things that scare me a little bit.
Sure.
Although there are certain things that I really do enjoy about the fact that Tree is going to be as potentially potent as it's going to be. The one thing that's bad about it, obviously, is that it's a gatekeeper deck. It's not going to be fun to play against. Certain decks just cannot win against it, which sucks. But
Card games.
what are you going to do? Card games, exactly. It just makes the bad matchups that much worse, and it makes the game feel a little bit worse. And that's something I personally don't enjoy, but it's something I understand at a competitive level. Like, obviously, if you're in like a house rules tournament, you're going to either ban Tree, Horn, or both of them together.
Yeah.
And let it be played in like Persia. But I think the biggest boon to Tree coming back, first of all, Tree's going to be able to play Ragnarok Stone.
Yes.
Because Tree doesn't care about losing its turn 1 or turn 2 for the most part. It's totally fine. You don't mind losing that little spot. And for the rest of the game, being able to have just don't tap your ruler to get the stone, and then you just get the thing back from the removed area, get the thing back from the removed area. And the biggest thing that you get back from the removed area, especially in the fact that Electo didn't get banned, Rizard, King of the Damned, shits on Electo.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And also, Electo keeps trying to bring itself back. Rizard's like, nah, I'm going to remove you again and do it again. And you just keep filling up your removed area. Rizard keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And
yeah, I think there's this kind of nice element to people have kind of been talking about how Wanderer is New Frontiers Plus, which, to their credit, it is.
When Carlina was around, yes.
When Carlina was around, it was. Hence why we worked hard, why Mike and I kind of toolbox together to build Hungry Box and like say like we need to stop it. But like with the coming of something like Tree 2 with the tools that it has at its disposal, I honestly don't think you can play Wanderer, like competitive Wanderer, as New Frontiers Plus, because I legitimately don't think any of the current New Frontier strategies can beat a Tree 2 deck like the way it is now. Like, you just won't be able to beat it. I think that there is an element of, okay, now Wanderer is truly going to feel different. Because Tree 2 has all these tools and accessibility pieces that will force you to have to play a different game. So it's kind of like we've had this conversation of New Frontiers now feels like it's skimmed the first 2 turns of like setup, and we're like, we're getting into the game faster. And it almost kind of feels like with this new thing, with the presence of Tree 2 and Wanderer competitively being as it is now, you kind of have to play Wanderer like old school FOW, where you're like, we're not gonna get started right away. Like, we're gonna spend some time kind of like getting things figured out first.
Yeah. I was about to say, the one thing that Tree does really well is just making your opponent not want to attack you those first couple of turns.
Yep.
The presence of Tree will slow things down.
Yeah.
And I think, unless somebody finds a way to combo into Tree, which I don't think is going to happen.
Oh, the Yigdor combo! Stop it. Don't.
No.
Like, even Violet is going to be like, what do I do?
Oh, look at Jeremy just casually dropping this.
What do I do?
Chat.
What do I do against the Tree 2 deck? Atomic Bahamut says, I don't know. I can't hurt it. It's fine.
What is that, Paul?
Wolfgang?
Oh, just a cool boy. Yeah, just a cool little boy. His name is Wolfgang.
Wolfgang 2?
Dude, listen, so. Golfwang is the best. Anyway.
Hey, man, I just won't ever attack Million Demonic Worlds.
Oh, thank you. Great. I'll just connect with you and not have to deal damage. And still win the game.
Yeah. No, I think that the presence of Tree, just going back to this, I'm just fairly sure that there's some kind of build. Also, Tree with Magic Stone of the 6 Ages, if you don't hit the Ragnarok Stone turn 1, is hilarious. I will say that. You just keep just like, nice. But I think there's some of the biggest things about the format. Obviously, we're going to talk about Electo Combo again. I think Electo Combo changes up drastically. I think it goes very much into like, I wouldn't even say monkey trapped in life, but that's a possibility of just kind of trying to
Mm,
umbrella your opponent out of
yeah.
life loss and just keep looping that around. Like that plus Shadow Axe is probably enough
Dark
damage
decks
over the
probably
course of
shift. Yeah, dark decks probably shift back towards the incarnation engine. So like because
yeah.
you have more time to be able to set it up. So like it doesn't feel necessarily as bad. To like just kind of like play this kind of slow grind game and grind out that way, like Shadow X and stuff like that. Yeah, for sure, I see
Yeah.
that a lot. Toby,
I
you
oh,
bring up the point of don't you just turn it sideways and deck them out. The problem is that Tree can't lose except by deck out for drawing for turn because of way foul works. So if they get a Horn of the Sacred Beast in their opener, plus an Allosaurus, like it doesn't matter how many times you swing, if they can put a card back on top of their deck and then draw it as the draw for their turn, they don't lose the game. So turning it sideways actually is counterintuitive against Tree because you're just giving them more tools.
yeah, Percy
So
could do
yeah,
it because Percy didn't have to deal with the Horn and the Allosaurus that it didn't have to deal with back in the original E&W. Percy could turn sideways against Tree, and Percy could put out just enough damage to put it into the danger zone.
yeah. But
You can't
now
anymore.
they have Horn and Allosaurus.
Yeah, like the biggest things you have to do against Tree is like hold a Lorite for the Horn of Sacred Beasts, and you have to have instant speed damage to deal with the Allosaurus. So if you don't have both those things, you're gonna have a hard time beating Tree unless you just life lost them to death.
Yeah, which they're now playing
Or
healing robot.
unless you manage to remove from the game all four horns and all four Allosaurus, if you're the luckiest proest player in the history of all of Force of Will, just take
Paul,
your trophy.
here's the strat. Paul, here's the strat. Okay, for the Wolfgang 2, we're going
Take
back
the
into
Minha trophy.
we're going back into Scorched Mountain Trail, so that if they would gain life, they lose life instead. And
Like you don't gain it anyway because of Tree 2.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Jeremy,
No.
you lost the game.
What's the replace? Well, that's interesting. That'd be an interesting question of what's the replacement effect there, right? So like, is Tree's life gain prevention a replacement effect that says the life you gain would be 0? Because if so, then it becomes a matter of, well, you technically would be gaining 14,000 life, but Tree 2 says you can't, which then means we reverse it and it becomes life loss damage because of my addition. Ah! Charlie, you're in the chat. Help me.
I'm fairly sure cannot supersedes this entire thing, but we'll go to Charlie.
I mean, it's an interesting point, right? If it like creates a life gain packet, and then Tree 2 says I replace that with 0.
Yo!
Then you can
crystallization in Tree. No downside.
Yeah, just
I love it.
We've done it. Yeah, this has me excited about stuff. I mean, Wanderer, the idea of, we've talked about how like Wanderer New Frontiers feels like it's becoming a different game, but also it does feel like it's kind of, with the way that they've kind of reshaped one drops a little bit and the new order mechanic and the loss of dual stones, it feels like we're going to be seeing, a game state that's a little bit more grindy, that we've kind of been enjoying. I've been enjoying it myself. I've been playing games with it already, and it's already kind of feeling like it's not just pop off turn ones unless you're playing Nyarlathotep, except your opponent knows what you're doing, so don't do it, because otherwise you just feel bad. Like it feels like we're into a more like grindy strategy kind of game, but we're just starting sooner. And then with this new take to Wanderer, it feels like Wanderer is like, nope, we're gonna go back to the old school feeling of FOW, and so it really does truly feel like you can kind of play both and really enjoy it, which is really awesome, which is great. Especially since we're getting Wanderer promos. The ban list is like, I also think that this is a good indicator of like, Carlina was around for 3 months and we got the updated ban list. We got the like officialized ban list 3 months ago, and we've already had an update to it within 3 months, which means that if the company themselves are not doing the data analysis, they're looking and talking to the people who are doing the data analysis and taking their considerations into effect, which gives me more confidence in Wanderer that we're already seeing changes to it so quickly, right? So these are like things that we've been asking for years. And it's nice to kind of see that play out.
Yeah. Another thing I do want to mention is that with the new set, I think a lot of the cards I haven't really gotten the chance to like look deeper into, but looking at the stone triggers, I keep thinking like now that we're not just playing the Carlina game, we have a chance to like really experiment a lot with resonance and also like the temporary stone things. Like I just want to like use the put 3 stones in rested, tap one of them, sack up the fiery fox of incarnation, put a new stone in, and just use like some goofy ramp.
I want to
Like
have
that
the
sounds
three. I want to
fun.
have the 3-drop Abdul, pay 1 and ramp 3 Blackstones into play, and then make you
That's
discard 3 cards.
yeah,
Like,
that's gonna
bleh.
be me, especially because like you can order the Abdul, so it can't be
And it doesn't
canceled.
have an
You
enter
tap for
effect, so then you're just
yep,
like immediately pop off, and you're like, hey.
yeah, and you tap for a stone, and you get the stone in play, and the effect triggers, and then you use that stone that you just tapped into to get, and then you just
Charlie has
and your hand's
corrected me.
gone.
Charlie has corrected me. My strategy does not work. It's okay.
Correct.
I tried. I tried Wolfgang too. I tried, buddy.
Where's the first layer?
Does the first layer lose life or deal damage?
I think
I think it deals
It
damage.
does deal 400 damage
Damage.
multiplied by X.
Yeah. Rip.
Gross. Just use the
Unfortunate.
transformed. It's 400 damage.
Yeah, just use the transform. It's 400 life loss. So moving Wanderer's very exciting. I'm excited to see this kind of big shift. I am now kind of more on figuring out what we're gonna try to break next. Is obviously gonna be, especially if we have a GP for Wanderer, probably means that like we're gonna break something with Tree 2. That seems like the good place to
I'm
start.
gonna break something, Jeremy.
We're gonna break something together, Mike. We're gonna keep.
We're gonna bend and bend and bend. This is gonna.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
And then Dennis is gonna hate me again.
It's fine. It's fine. So I do want to talk about as we've shifted to talking about New Frontiers, we're officially past release weekend. We've started to have kind of our first interactions with playing with the new stuff. At least Paul and I have. I know that Southern Hobby's been having weird issues with delays, which is very strange. I don't know what's going on there, and hopefully that's not a continual trend for Southern. If it is, you just order from Odyssey Games. And we got you covered there. But I do want to talk about. I'll go to Paul first on this one. Paul, you played Kaguya this past weekend. It was kind of your first vibe with the Order Ruler in a constructed environment. So kind of share with us about your experience about playing in a constructed environment with the new mechanic, how it felt, your experience of it, kind of your takeaways from it as we kind of go off of draft ones.
Yeah. Well, I love Kaguya. It's just a fun deck. Being able to just produce a whole bunch of moons. But also, I didn't find myself going for like crap ton of moons all at once. It was one of those like, okay, this turn I have the will open, I'll just make 1 moon, and then I'll make another one, and all of a sudden the deck is on. You really, in my experience of the deck so far, you only need like 3 or 4 moons to really get going. So that I thought I was gonna have to go like the 8-10 moons, but it's not the case at all. However, we had mentioned on this channel before, Kaguya in green right now, there is no natural removal. So when your opponent sticks a Hagel and they realize, wait a minute, he only really plays Resonators. And if I order this Hagel, he can't order himself. And then he's a 10-10 that I can just keep swinging with. This seems pretty good. I'm going to do that. And then you just lose.
How did Hanzo feel? That's the big
question. Hanzo felt pretty decent. Feedsing felt more like a turn 2 or 3 Resonator that you could order.
Sure.
Which sometimes you wanted to and sometimes you didn't. But like playing Hanzo, like after, like if I turn 1 got a moon and then turn 2 had 2 stones and ordered a Hanzo on turn 2, all of a sudden I have all my will back. And I can start playing things on my opponent's turn. It's very quick cast heavy, so
yeah, it's great.
So I had the Ninja of Silence that blanks damage when it comes in. I found Hanzo to be not Hanzo, excuse me, the Kataro to be probably a 2 of with 2 in the side. because I didn't find myself ordering that nearly as much.
Sure.
Like my order did not die like ever.
Yeah,
So
we talked about that before, right? About how Kaguya doesn't feel like she feels like she gets maybe 2 orders in a game. Because like she doesn't want to be flipping back and forth a lot. She's not going to be, her orders are more of like her utility cards of like you flip and you want them to stick around for a bit, whereas opposed to Nyarla's like flip, go face, flip, go face, flip, go face, and Loki's like I'm gonna kill my own stuff, and Odin's like I'm just gonna revive it, kill it if you want.
yeah.
So it's good to know that our kind of initial impressions, or initial thoughts about how the deck would feel in terms of the mechanic, kind of definitely played out. So we had talked about before how when Ryan was on the show, it felt like we were going into a format where you were going to feel good and bad matchups. Like they were going to feel like this is going to be difficult. Obviously, again, this is draft 1, so like your deck wasn't necessarily up to peak condition, your opponent's deck wasn't necessarily up to peak condition. We haven't really learned what the meta is. But would you say that experience has kind of been true for you, at least at first pass? That like some matchups felt better than others?
Well, and that's always the thing that I really like about these like beginning of new rulers in your building, because you kind of can just throw yourself at the wall and whatever sticks, you learn about the deck, right? My experience has been that Odin is really good against me because I've only played against Odin.
Sure.
But for sure, like Odin has tools. Having big dudes, having dudes that shut down your plays, and then put pressure on the board. That's a very like mid-rangey thing for Odin to do. And if Kaguya doesn't have tools, which she can definitely have tools, she has to go into another color, which she can do, I would say, relatively easily. Maybe into 3 colors relatively easily. Unless she does that, she's going to have a really hard time sort of dealing with Odin. And so she might want to keep an eye on that matchup specifically.
Sure.
I would also imagine Nyarlathotep is going to be a really hard matchup too if she cannot get like a feasting in hand turn 1.
Like the early answers stuff, yeah. Because I was playing I've built an Odin because Elder Rhoden is going to be played on the channel soon, or rather than later. Just every turn Eldorado. But I have found myself at least experimenting with Loki a little bit. And I am truly finding that the Loki Gnarly matchup is pretty heavily dependent on Loki ordering early or having access to spot removal. It truly does feel like, from what we've seen from red players so far, they have the pretty traditional problem that I've seen from red decks, in the fact of like kill their linchpin thing in response to an enter effect and their turn falls flat. Like it's very easy to like take momentum away from them. And so in that regard, Loki kind of is the best to set up there as long as you can control the turn 1, because you have this 0 cost to just kill anything, or like kill their order. And I've played Loki some casuals against some other just decks that people hadn't updated yet, and I've played against Nyarlathotep. And like I can see that matchup being like a potential 50-50 like as we go into more learned, but I've also like felt that matchup be very Loki heavily favored as long as Loki can control the early tempo. And so because Loki is like the king of removal of the 4, in terms of like for specifically the order removal, Loki's kind of the king, especially when you consider like being able to pop your own pop your own Schmells to like just apply a neg 10 to the board and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how is your like feeling of the order mechanic like felt for you, having been playing, non-ordered and now trying out ordered?
I'd say it really makes me consider what a card is going to be used for in the main deck.
Sure.
And depending on the deck that I'm using, so like Kaguya, we've said, you know, you're going to order once, maybe twice in a game, right? Because Feasting can just unorder herself.
Sure.
When she's ordered. You're going to be doing that maybe 2-3 times if your opponent's being really aggressive. And so you have to really consider, like, okay, is Kataro actually going to have utility in a deck that, you know, isn't playing against a Kaguya player, right? Is Feasting being ordered something you really want to do at this moment? So, like, having to understand what the deck wants to do with its order is really important. It feels different in Judgment from that way, because it's like, okay, when do I want to Judgment as opposed to what do I want to Judgment?
Yeah.
That is a completely different idea. It's like almost like a whole different toolbox. You just open it up and it's like, this card can suddenly do other things at this point in the game. So it has that like dual utility. The multimodal aspect of Force of Will has just been broken wide open.
Yeah. It feels good. I mean, like, mechanically, it feels, I don't want to say necessarily like complicated. I mean, it's adding depth to your decisions, but like the mechanics of order feel very smooth. Having now played with it, like trying to sit down and explain, like playing over pre-release and playing a draft, like sitting down across from a new player and trying to explain order versus when I tried to explain Stranger decks versus when I tried to explain Divinity, I found that new players were picking up the idea of ordering much faster. They're just like, okay, great. Once they, you know, keyed into what text was linked to what, they were just like, got it, ready to go. So in that sense, it feels a lot smoother and it's pretty satisfying. And like really, like you said, makes you look at you almost kind of have like two hands, but like in the same hand, because you're just like every card can potentially be kind of two cards. So it's also kind of like an expression or an expansion of like the split cards, in a sense, like a different take on the split cards, because like each card, it's just the same card, so I'm casting it one way or the other, but it's like, is it at this layer or at this layer? And so you can kind of think of it that way. It's fun. It's a fun, exciting like mechanic to experiment with.
Not to mention how that expands older cards too.
Yeah.
So like I'm using Prisia in the deck that I built to be able to like fish out feastings from the deck and stuff. And just being able to say, okay, I'm gonna order Prisia to get my Prisia, to get my Prisia, to get my Prisia, to get my Galileo. All of a sudden I have these flyers I can just attack in for game.
Well,
and you can't cancel it. That feels pretty good.
Well, isn't Galileo's make all your moons bigger thing on his order?
Yeah, but I'm not using that. The all of your resonators gain flying.
Oh,
is on
sure.
his
Oh, sorry.
Resonator
Yes,
portion.
all of the flying part. Yes, for sure.
And the recovering stone. So like I'm like, cool, if I draw Galileo and I order him, cool, I have moons for game. Or I can just order Prisia, guaranteed getting this thing off, because there's not a lot of like enter stopping right now. So it's like,
yeah, not
cool,
necessarily. Yeah, unless you're feasting. Unless you're using
yeah.
Charlie saying, imagine being able to order turn 1. Thanks, I Spy. I mean, like, technically you can, but I'm glad that Nyarlathotep can't. at least can't order turn 1 in the way that we want her to be able to order turn 1 when we were first looking at her. Like she's still it's like even more vulnerable if she tries to go that route. It feels like like when I've been playing against it or seeing people talk about it, it just feels like the Wolfgang 1 scenario of like, oh, I'm gonna pop off. Like, okay, I'm just not gonna top out and I'm gonna punish you. Like, don't do it. But Nyarlathotep's different in Wolfgang 2 in that she has a lot more flexibility rather than being a one-shot, one-trick pony. So
kind of bring this back to Wanderer for a sec.
Necro Barrier doesn't stop enter effects of ordered things.
Correct.
Because they're a J roller, not a resonator. Hit 6 stage. Sure, you can hit 6 stage stone on 1. You can do it. But again, it's still that same kind of vulnerability because you have to have coin and that, and then you're tapped out when you order, and then a 1-drop removal spell derails your whole plan. Don't do it.
To bring it back to Wanderer, though, like one of the best things that Josh and I were tooling around with was he built old school Prisia, like Prisia 3, you know, like flip,
Red, black.
do your stones, all that stuff.
Red, green.
Red green Prisia, the Beastmaster. And he was playing things like Isis, and other like fun things that we got out of this new set that work with Resonance. And he was doing some pretty crazy stuff. So like I love how this set has set up Wanderer to be somewhat relevant in terms of some of its older mechanics.
Yeah.
There's some really potent stuff there.
The resonance we've on this trend, right? So like MSW didn't really have it, but like Seal and then Null and now Resonance are getting like this breath of new life where we're like, what if we actually make that feel like a deck as opposed to just slap that keyword onto a bunch of things. And so it feels like that same kind of continued trend, which is great. I like that a lot.
Force 1, draw that many cards.
Stop. Okay, Yu-Gi-Oh! Sixth Sense. We need a Necro Barrier for enters that aren't Rezos. The problem is that the way that ordering works is you'd have no time to cast that, Echo. You'd have no time to cast a Necro Barrier for J-Ruler enter effects, because that doesn't work, because you don't have a priority sequence. That being said, in Wanderer, we going back to our boy Abdul? Mike? Abdul in Wanderer? OG Abdul, stop all the enter effects? What? I mean, if you're not playing this pop-off Wanderer game because Tree forces you to be slower, I mean, having an Abdul, it's just saying no enter effects. I mean, that's fine with me. I'm down with that. Yeah. Yeah, it feels good. It feels good mechanically. Casually, once again, already, casually, Game of Gods has so much silliness that you can do, and just like fun jank and like build cool stuff. It continues the trend. In my first experiences with playing with Game of Gods, it truly feels like they're continuing this trend of really hitting sets that like it's a set that you can just enjoy casually and play and have fun. It's a set that will add a lot of diversity and create complexity in the competitive environment, which will feel satisfying to play in, and then has some Wanderer support or has some implementation for Wanderer. The only difference this time versus previous sets is we have a much easier entry ramp with the starter decks for brand new players. Toby, you asked in the question, how do the two different rulers from the starter deck compare to the ones released on the set? They're different. I would say that Odin from the starter probably just doesn't have any kind of application. When you look at what Odin's mechanic is, it's Odin from the set is just a straight improvement for any kind of deck that you would want to play with Odin. Even like Artillerist, right? Artillerist already feels better off of just the new Odin, because you can like mill a Brunhild to RFG to get a cost bump before you discard the card with Artillerist, right? And Artillerist already has Pierce, so like what is that +2/+2 Pierce giving you? That being said, the Gnarlies I think have different applications. Potentially. I think that people are already leaning to the +2/+2 swiftness, because +2/+2 and swiftness, yay. But there's already a lot of stuff in Gnarly that already has swiftness or gets swiftness anyway. So maybe if you're playing like a heavier burn package, you're playing the +X version for like Lovecraft to have Lovecraft be naturally bigger or stuff like that. I'm not sure. I haven't explored Gnarly very much. I'm not a red player for the most part, so we'll have to get some impressions from some other people.
Kind of speaking, Gnarly is part darkness, so it's probably partially your.
That's fair. I mean, I will say that Gnarly has had me the most interested of any red ruler in a very long time, and that's maybe because she's part darkness. So there you go. But yeah, I would think that the Odin of the set is just hands over fist better than the Odin in the starter. I think that the Gnarlies are worth looking into to see which one you would want to play differently for each deck. If that answers your question. Joey Fuller, yeah, this set's been great. Lots of neat stuff to do. Yeah! Elder Rhoden.
Yeah.
Elder Rhoden.
If you wanted a way to stop enter effects of non-resonators, I mean, just here you go. They just printed this.
Hey, Lorite.
In Wanderer.
Yeah.
Haha.
Yeah.
There you go.
And then I will say, I am a big proponent of casually all order rulers playing a 1-of Ragstone. I'm just saying.
Well, I guess I could talk about that because I did end up using. So my Kaguya build had Priscia, but it also had Institute to make my little dudes bigger.
Sure.
And so I did play the 1-of Ragstone, and getting that turn 1 and then being able to just judgment order on turn 2 very comfortably, especially with a Hanzo, felt really good. Because I just immediately made all that will back.
Keep note that I said casually, right? Competitively, that card's getting cut because this is a format where you cannot tap out on one, like based on the matchup, right? You need to be able to have the flexibility to be able to play on one if you need to. Casually though, Ragstone, let's do it. That's great. Mike's just losing brain cells by the look of things here. Yeah, man. Jeremy just casually advocating for Ragnarok Stone in every order deck. Don't worry about it.
I think that's the face of like planning Tree 2 shenanigans.
Yeah, he's just in it.
I'm just planning Tree 2.
He's just thinking. Let's all just disassociate for a minute and think about Tree 2.
My video is also disconnecting real bad, so give me.
We talk about disassociating to think about Tree 2, and then you leave the call.
It's like screw that. I'm gonna
the ultimate disassociation.
Sorry, my last few brain cells got RFG'd.
Yeah, the last few ones. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, there's also this whole thing about like how much are I really focusing? Like competitive FOW first set post-release is all about just learning stuff, but not really like thinking too hard about what you would build. It's more about just like understanding how it all works, because most of the time our first GP isn't till post set 2, right? So like learn what you want, be aware of what the rulers are doing, but it's almost kind of more encouraged to just like be aware but just have fun. So there's that too. I've been told that there might be some information soon.
Soon, trademark.
As soon as I get permission to talk about it, or confirmation and permission to talk about it, I will share. But I've been made aware of some potentials. That's all I can say. So I guess I can say we are having a competitive season in 2022, but we knew that already. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. The more the brain cells he loses, the choppier he's trying to play Welser. Yeah, red Welser, as in the green one with red. Yeah. Just
unbless.
Throw Nyarlathotep ramp stones at them. Yeah, just
Paul, what is the opposite of unblessing someone?
Cursing them?
Brad will be the top ruler this coming GP. Toby. Buddy.
Easy.
Mikage.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Where was your bud Mikage? We just abandoned him, and now we're on Brad.
I'm pretty sure Mikage's tier 0. Like now that Carlina's banned in Wanderer, tier 0 Mikage is gonna just rise up.
Yeah, clearly. I will say, I get to throw Dan under the bus a little bit here, and he'll be fine with it. He's giving away a playset of promos tonight anyway, so he'll be fine.
I see.
So I go up to their pre-release event, and I brought Hungry Box to show Dalton how it works, and like looking to like show it off or whatever. And Dan's like, "Oh, I'll play you," and it's like very confident. And I look at him dead in the face, and I was like, "You will lose. Like, this is not going to go well for you." He's like, "Oh, I don't think so," and he sits down. And I proceed to get to 4 stones on 2, uninterrupted.
Only 4?
Like,
only 4?
And just like completely decimate it against his Mikage Wanderer deck. And I was like, "I'm sorry. I told you this wasn't going to go well." But now it's banned, and I've de-sleeved it, and it's okay. I've left my mark on Wanderer. Red Brad?
Our mark.
So
I will get you.
So yeah, Echo, I don't have any concrete information. I've just been made aware that there are things being worked on. So we should have hopefully information soon.
Wait, red bread? Bread?
Brad?
Bread, no bread.
Bread.
Red.
Bread wheat?
Whole wheat.
So yeah, good stuff. We will be doing this week's feature match will be a showcase, a couple of showcase games of the 2 starter decks, to kind of show off what those decks look like in application if you haven't already picked them up, but also for like our newer players to have them kind of see like, hey, this is what I'm buying. Artillerist is gross, I will say. That Artillerist,
yes.
Artillerist is a gross card, and I am terrified of it significantly more than when I first looked at it. Because of how easy it is for that card to just slam like 12 damage and just be like, whoops. Bread. Yeah, so we'll be doing that. Paul will hopefully have some Wanderer deck profiles for us later this week. And then next week we're probably taking the week off because it's Christmas. We might have a feature match next week, but like Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
As we think back on this past year, getting towards Christmas, and this is a question for the chat, and so this will also enter you into the giveaway for a playset of promo Yggdrasils.
Oh.
What is your favorite Force of Will memory from this past year? This is a question for the chat, and this is a question for my co-hosts. Your favorite Force of Will memory from this past year. Don't all speak up at once.
I got it.
Paul's got it. Paul's leading us off.
I finally met Steven Holsheiser. He was wearing a Corgi t-shirt tribute to Cowboy Bebop.
What a good boy.
That was your biggest memory?
Like,
biggest moment?
That was some of the best Force of Will stuff, because it happened at GB Minnesota.
It's true. It's true.
Honestly, mine, getting on the call with you, Jeremy, on my way home from work, and splurging ideas to make Carlina as broken as physically possible for a Wanderer tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And then succeeding.
Yeah. That's probably gonna be mine too. I'm writing down people's names here. I think for me, I think just the entirety of GP Minnesota was probably like the highlight of my year. It was the first like flying to a GP where I was able to bring Paul, like with a flight. So that was a really cool like experience, being able to do that. It was a great group of people. We played the cube like 3 times, and that was a blast to play the cube with people and like see people in person and like have the full stream crew and all that stuff. and then I actually got to play in a tournament and remind myself why I stopped playing competitively. Uh, Paul can attest. Like I turned into a different person in finals. I like it was a lot. Like let's see, Caring. Welcome back, Carix12. Game of Gods pre-release. As you just got back into the game. What a wonderful time to get back in. Welcome back.
Good for you.
Yeah, so like I remember playing in the event and I drew with Tyler. And so we're going into the last round and I'm like, well, I'm guaranteed top 4 at this point. If I can win this last one, I'm in like first, second contention. Tyler and I, because we drew, agreed that if we ended up at the same record in the final round, we would split cash between the two of us. So like I'm sitting here, like I paid $20. I built this deck with my grants. We're trying to break stuff. This is my first time playing competitively in like 3 years. And I'm sitting ready to potentially win this event. And like all of the competitive nerves just like flooded my body and I just like shut out the world. Just like everything was a lot sharper. All of my movements were sharper. I got super quiet. And just like I told people around me to stop talking. I distinctly remember there was a point, Paul, where you like came up to ask me a question and I was thinking about something and I interrupted you to say, please stop talking. Like I'm not listening to you.
I don't know if it was me.
I think it was somebody. Like somebody came up to ask me something and I was just like, please stop. Like, don't talk to me right now. Like I need to not have another human being in my presence other than my opponent.
You picked the wrong place.
Yeah, this is not the right spot right now. And like, but those games, I told the people who were there that like if that event had been like an hour and a half later in the day, I would not have slept that night. Because I was like so like just flooded with energy. But at the same time, like that was kind of a cool capstone to like get that experience. Because so much of the time when I'm playing, when I go to GPs, like I'm the one who doesn't get to play Vow. Like everyone else is so burned out from GPs, like from playing in the GP, that no one wants to play or anything. And I love hanging out with people, don't get me wrong. But like after having traveled and watched people play Force of Will for so long, I didn't like to play. So it was kind of nice to just have that like capstone experience at the end of it of like, this is getting back into my competitive grind, kind of almost proving to myself that like, yeah, I've still got it if I really wanted to. I don't really want to, but I could if I wanted, and that was a cool thing as well. Yeah, GP Minnesota is like always my favorite, and this year was, for so many multitudes of reasons, was once again my favorite, from the social, from the competitive, from the smoothness of the event. It was just wonderful. Can't wait to do it again. Imagine not playing Foul. Okay, Charlie. Okay, Mr. Judge, who's now actively looking at playing again.
Mike, what's your favorite memory?
Yeah. Well, Mike's favorite memory is building Carolina Hungry Box with me, where he called me on the way home.
Oh, in the
from
car.
Work.
That's right.
Yeah.
I need to go to bed.
Yeah, you do need to go to bed. Well, we're at the end of our podcast tonight anyway, so let's run a little giveaway here. Let's see, we're doing a play set of Yggdrasil promos. So winner is,
speaking of tree.
Oh, and what a nice thing. Our winner is actually our brand new person to the game, Carix12.
Look at that.
You did it.
You did it. Welcome back. We're glad to be able to
back to the game.
Welcome back to the game. Here's some promos. So Carix, if you would please send me your name and address to Ruler School Content. rulerschoolcontent@gmail.com. There's one in the chat. Send me your name and your address there. Then I will make sure that Dan gets that, ccgprime.com, where you can go to access over 100,000 Force of Will singles from all the way back.
That's a few.
That's a lot. Like from the entirety of Force of Will's history, and check them out. They even have singles up right now for Game of Gods if you're still looking to pick up a couple other ones. And they are a wonderful sponsor of the channel. So you give us your name and your address there at that email address, and we'll get your promos shipped out to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching and being a Force of Will player. Welcome back. So, I'm sorry, Echo. I'm sorry. But you're in the United States right now, so for 2 more days. And Mike Grant's left again. And now he's back.
Gotta get his promos.
He's gotta go get his promos. So I do want to say thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. Like I said, we're gonna be taking a break from office hours next week. We'll have a feature match for next week, though still. Deck profiles later this week, provided we get the time to kind of get ourselves caught up. I should send you a pic to show. I know what the promos are. They're Yggdrasils. They're the promo Yggdrasil Marvel Rares. But that has been us. If you like what we did, if we made you smile...
somebody getting right back into the game to give him a playset of a card that's now officially rotated out of New Frontiers.
I mean, they're still fancy, pretty cards. I mean,
they're amazing.
If you get back into the game, there's starter decks that go really well with those cards.
Yeah, there are. So it's great.
Dan probably has. Hopefully,
still waiting for the Tree 2 Judge promos. So yeah, that is it. If you liked what we did here today, consider clicking that join button and subscribe button down below. The join button is essentially a Twitch subscription. Twitch Prime subscription. It's just YouTube's version of it. Gets you access to cool things like the emotes, the channel badges, and all other kinds of things at higher perk levels, including signed playmats, signed t-shirts, all kinds of other stuff. The chance to play games with us and have us deck doctor, all those kinds of things. We appreciate the support, regardless of what level you join at. We're super happy to have you all here. I do want to say that we, over the course of 2021, we gained just under 400 new subscribers to the channel, which, after being at a nice little lull for quite a bit, was a very nice uptick, as well as the memberships has been a wonderful people who joined throughout this past year. We started the beginning of the year at around like 30-ish, and we're up to just over 90 members of the channel right now, which is a huge blessing to being able to help us purchase new equipment and everything else. So thank you all so much. We're incredibly grateful for all the support you continue to show us. And we hope you have a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. So until next time, this has been myself, DM073, and I've been joined as always by Mike Rants.
Wait, there's nothing for until the new year?
No. We're going to have at least one more episode before the new year, probably.
Oh my God,
just
okay.
not next
Really
week.
good. Oh, okay.
Grateful for the new year. And
See
Paul
you guys
Reisman.
whenever.
See y'all on my vacation.
Yeah. And until next time, class dismissed.
Class is dismissed.